So here we are. We've already been chatting amongst ourselves, the panel and I, and now we're going to let you in, starting with the intro to Views on the News.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carried and bread.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys? Some members of the panel today bring their own news. And that's starting with Guy from Manchester. Welcome, Guy. Thank you for coming. David from New York. Thank you, David. Welcome for coming and all that nonsense. Yeah, I'll get it right in a minute. And Tersia from South Africa. Thank you for coming. Welcome. I hope you guys are all very well.
Yes, we are.
So Tersia, we said we'd start with you. What have you got to report?
Well, I'll be quick. You said I couldn't. I'll show it to you. I'll prove to you that I'll be quick.
You've already wasted several seconds.
Yes. Well, all right. So it's news in the sense that I went to church again today for the first time in about 10 years. I went to my former denomination, the one that I grew up in, which is a very fundamentalist, very conservative, Calvinist, Afrikaans church community. I went primarily to listen to the newly refurbished church organ because I enjoy church music. And all I have to report on that, well, not all, I think it's quite important, is that it was a wonderfully empathetic experience for me. And I realized what the power of indoctrination is, because I slipped right into the pageantry, the music, the lyrics, it all just came back to me. So that was something that I didn't quite expect. And then I also realized that there's so much work to do, because the people with whom I shared that space, whom I observed dispassionately without any emotional attachment, but also importantly without any sense of I had no sense of regret. I had no sense of they were stupid. They are good, for the most part, good, decent people who have been misinformed their entire lives. And we need to have empathy with people who sit in church pews every Sunday, because they are misinformed and they are continually being subjected to the most subtle and most overt types of indoctrination that really has a very detrimental effect. I was shocked at the blatant emphasis on how depraved we are as humans, and how you should examine yourself because you're evil and you're bad and you can't live without Jesus. And I just felt so much empathy for every single person, especially the young people sitting in those church pews. And we need to have empathy, and we need to understand that people who hold strong religious beliefs are sincerely misinformed. They are victims. Most of them are victims, and we need more empathy, and we need to change the message that we should avoid, and we should reprimand atheists who refer to religious people as retards, or they are like victims. They've been infected by a virus of the mind. And just like we would have pity for somebody who has smallpox and the scars that go with it, we won't call anybody who gets infected with a virus stupid for being infected with a virus. We need to have that same attitude. And I've already oversaid what I wanted to say. I've been too long already. So you proved me wrong, John.
No, I proved myself right. Anyway, I've been there. I know exactly what you're saying, because when my daughter was in the school choir and was performing for the Nativity at the local Roman Catholic cathedral, who went along and sang lustily at all those wonderful hymns that I learned as a child? It was me. And what they are doing is they're using the sandwich technique. They're using a bit of theatre, some entertainment, and then a hatred speech, and then a bit more entertainment, and then another, you are despicable. We want to destroy your self-esteem type of speech, sandwiched. But I know that Guy also has had an exciting experience today.
Yes. Well, I wouldn't describe it as exciting, but I mean, I'm pleased with what Tersia has just said, because that is, I think, a constructive attitude for us atheists to take vis-a-vis those who are still dominated by religion.
Yeah.
Because today I was meeting an atheist from an Islamic country. I won't say which one, but he's a young man who feels he's had a really raw deal growing up in that country and has taken refuge and been granted refugee status here.
Yeah.
He was, and he has not been quite as Tertia has said. He's been a bit provocative and in your face on social media stuff. He was spotted by some Muslim fundamentalists, and they confronted him and tried to assault him. In fact, they did assault him. I mean, I tried to stop them, but he was assaulted. It was a very public place in the middle of a lot of people were present, and the staff of that particular place came and pulled them off, and called security and all this kind of stuff. But I was pushed aside. I wasn't injured at all, but he took quite a few blows. He's a tough young man, and shook them off. But I kind of had a brush with this insanity of jihadi violence.
Yes, yes.
They seem to think that being provocative and antagonistic about the Quran and Islam is a far more serious offense than they're assaulting the guy, which certainly in our culture is not the case.
No.
But I have had this brush with jihad, and I'm not happy with that, and I think there is a worry for the safety of this young man, and also the safety of my atheist colleagues if this young man is kind of circulating among us. So it's something we have to give some careful thought to.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm glad you're okay, Guy. And
I was a bit shaken up, to be honest. Yeah.
Yes. But not physically damaged, thank heaven.
Physically damaged. I almost lost my glasses at one point.
Whoa.
Yeah. Did I say thank heaven? I didn't mean it. So
you said thank no God.
Oh yes, that's right. Yes, thank no God. Yes, that's my my version of no God. No God.
John, before we continue, I just have to say, as the only truly African person on the panel.
We're all Africans.
Yes, but I'm more African than you are, though.
True.
Oh, you're currently more African, but we are historically equally African.
I have more African blood in me than you do. I can prove it.
Go on. What point were you about to make, Tersia?
Sorry?
You were going to say something about that? Were you going to say that as the only true African, ... You were going to say something?
No, I'm the most African. David, you should say something here now, because I can trace my African lineage about 3 generations, 2 generations perhaps, whereas the rest of you can't. You have to go way back further into the past.
About 60,000 years, I think.
I'm not
that
David,
you're muted. You've muted yourself, David.
Well, Tersia, I really care about you and I respect you, but I have to say, while you can go back 3 generations, I think we can go back about 350,000 years, tracing our alleles back to Africa, which doesn't invalidate you, but what it does is it validates all of our common humanity.
We're all
in that Africa is the cradle of our species,
and in that respect, we're all equal. I mean, what's 3 generations over 350,000 years?
Right. I have some news also, but I'll wait until we're ready to move on. But I have some very interesting news to share with you.
All right.
Oh, good. Okay. Well, we're going to visit New York during the course of the show. First of all, though, the item is about Iran, where Shani Luke, she was actually a victim. Sorry, it's not Iran, it's Israel. Beg its pardon. She was actually a victim of the invasion of Hamas into a music festival in 2022, and she's
2023. It was the 7th of October you're talking about.
oh yes, I am. I beg your pardon. Yes. Yes, so I've got that date wrong. Anyway, the poor girl was kidnapped, captured, raped, stripped, paraded as a body in the back of a pickup truck through the streets of Gaza, while ordinary Palestinians watched and cheered. And there is actually a video of this on the Global Atheist News, which is our parent show. I haven't included it into this show because it's rather unpleasant. But the reason it's news today is because her body has just been recovered.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, after 6 or 7 or 8 months, there can't be a lot left of it.
Well, it's been kept in a cellar in extremely cold conditions.
Oh, right.
And it has effectively been refrigerated or frozen even.
Mm-hmm.
So apparently it's recoverable as a body for proper disposal. But it's a horrible story about Hamas, which is very often disregarded. The Hamas tends to be subjugated to Palestine as a minor issue in a major victimization. And I don't think that's a good representation of the actuality. What do you think?
Well, I think any death is horrific, and I think the death of this woman and about 2,000 Israelis, but also about 30,000 Palestinians, just shows the insanity of religious violence taken to yet another extreme. My heart goes out to anybody who's lost their life because of this. I think the failure on Israel's side of this war is that it seems to be seen as a war of Israel against the Palestinians when it should be seen as a war of Israel against Hamas and not the Palestinian people.
Yeah.
But it's not being played that way. And I know there are people who are inside Israel who don't want to see this war continue the way it's been done by the Netanyahu government. I know in the United States, there are certainly allies, both in the government and on our college campuses. I've always I've never really dipped my toe that deeply into the Israel-Palestine conflict simply because it's been going on for thousands of years, and it's ethno-religious violence over who's there first, when in fact both tribal peoples have been there for 5,000 years. And so, quite frankly, we're just seeing the most recent iteration. If calmer heads held, there would be some type of two-state solution. There would be something to move us away from this dreaded Hatfield and McCoy loss of life of, vengeance and fatwa and more vengeance and eye for an eye, when peace is really easy if we wanted it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So going to Iran, where there's all sorts of misogynistic activities being perpetrated. A little video on the Global Atheist News features the Sharia police, who's what are they called? The
Morality police.
morality police. That's right. Yeah, and they
Very
are.
Orwellian.
They should
Yeah.
be called the immorality police.
Yes.
Mm.
Right.
Anyway, they're featured beating and arresting a woman and bundling her into a car. And do you know what she'd committed? What offence she'd done?
Her friends showed.
Yeah, her hijab had been improper.
I was trying to be funny, which obviously I thought it was going to be not real, but apparently that's
Yeah.
a thing.
Yeah.
Your friend shows.
Yeah, it doesn't take much in these evangelistic societies and theocracies, regardless of the religion for women to be the victims of this ongoing violence.
Yeah.
In particular, women and children.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So you'll be happy to hear that I can report from the UK, where a Moroccan asylum seeker named Ahmed Alid roamed the streets of Hartlepool looking for a victim to attack in revenge for the Israel-Hamas conflict. And he found somebody, a 70-year-old man, who he killed by stabbing him multiple times. And this was back in October, following, the invasion of Israel by Hamas. And he's been brought to court at Teesside Crown Court, and the judge has just sentenced him to, I think, life.
45 years, I seem to recall.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
his life was a minimum term of 45 years.
That's right. It's called life imprisonment, and it's specified to be 45 years. And the judge said the killer had hoped to frighten the British people and undermine the freedoms they enjoy.
Mm.
And he'd
also killed, stabbed his housemate who converted to Christianity. Is that what you were just about to say?
Absolutely. And he killed him.
Oh, killed him as well?
Yes.
Oh, I thought I didn't realize he'd killed him too.
No, he's dead too. Javed Nouri.
Oh, right. Because quite a lot of the refugees from Islamic countries have become Christians. I've noticed that. I would say more than have become atheists.
Probably. So this is the religion of peace we're talking about here, of course.
Yeah, the religion of peace, the famous religion of peace.
Meanwhile, in Germany, Muslim immigrants have been gathering and protesting in huge numbers, demanding an Islamic caliphate and Sharia law in Germany.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually it's going to feed the fears of lots of people around the world, especially in the UK, that actually the growth in the Muslim population is going to result in Muslims taking over. And so whenever a Muslim is elected as a mayor of a city or something like that, it feeds their fears and worries about that. And there has been, I've noticed actually, some serious discussion in the Islamic world recently about re-establishing the caliphate. I don't know how that could ever be achieved, quite honestly, because Muslims are so divided.
Yes.
The Shia are not going to agree to a Sunni
No.
caliphate, and vice versa. And there are loads of different types of Sunni, and I can't ever see how they can agree on one caliph.
No,
but that's a different matter.
And you're right in that there's reaction in Europe to this sort of feeling by the Islamic community. And Dutch Prime Minister Geert Wilders is leading the charge back.
Right. Yeah.
And he has just done a speech in which he says, we're going to mass deport these people who we don't want in our country.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the reasons why we're having such a rise in right-wing political elections. Right-wing people like Geert Wilders, but also the guy who's just been stabbed in Slovakia.
Yes.
And of course, there's
Yeah.
there's the Italian woman whose name I forgot, Meloni or something.
Yes.
And there's Orban in Hungary. I mean, it's actually getting very worrying what's going
Yes.
on
Yes.
politically.
Yes. The Slovak was shot, by the way, and is now.
Slovak, he was shot. He was shot 5 times, but he survived apparently.
That's right. Yeah, not stabbed. Yeah.
John, maybe you could clip this, what I want to say now. I want to give a message to the Muslims, whether they Shia or Sunni. It's not exactly the same situation, but I see analogies. So I am a white Afrikaner woman in South Africa, and I have to live in this country as a minority, as regardless of my faith, as a white person and as an Afrikaans speaking person, I'm a minority. I'm also a beneficiary of the very unjust system of apartheid. I never voted for it, but as a child of people who, of my ancestors did support apartheid, and although I never supported it, I still remain a benefactor of it by my birth, which is it's an accident of my birth.
Yes.
And I just want to tell all the Muslims out there who are immigrants, if you want to be accepted and adopted by your new country, don't do what you are doing. Respect the fact that you are part of a certain culture and that you carry that baggage with you, whether you like it or not. That is part of your birthright, just like my birthright, whether I want or not, is the fact that I have to accept that I'm a beneficiary of a very unjust system, and that I can't blame Black people who say to me that I am white and therefore I'm possibly racist, because they have to see me as part of a group, and whether I want to or not, it's not fair, but I am part of that group, and I have to go out of my way to show that I am different in individual interactions. And I have to tell other white people who still behave in racist manners, I have to take the responsibility and tell them, get yourselves together. You have certain obligations by the accident of your birth. Don't be racist. And if I don't want to tell them that, then I can't blame anybody. I can't blame any white person who expects white people to be racist, because there are many racist white people. And Muslims who are immigrants in other countries, in European countries, have the same burden to carry that I have as a white Afrikaner in South Africa today. And I never wanted to carry that burden, but I have to, because it is what it is. And I have to take that responsibility. And
that's the label you've been given, isn't it? Yeah. David, I liked what you said in a previous show that I've clipped. And it was about a quote of Martin Luther King. When you said that he spoke how we should not judge people by the amount of melanin in their epidermis, but by the content of their character.
Content of their character, absolutely. And I think if we live more to that, each of us, because it's not just a nice set of words, but it is in fact a responsibility.
Yes.
Here's a man who was clearly religious, who I could understand, and chose not violence but peace against people who were quite literally his enemy, and who did not want to see him and his people, based on the amount of melanin they had in their skin, drink from the same fountain, have the right to vote, have the right to get an education,
or sit on a bus.
Sit on a bus, live in a certain space, eat in a certain space, not even be able to sit at the same Woolworth counter. But but he chose, as Gandhi did, not the road of violence, which other people can do and have done, but the road to peace. And I think if we followed more in those footsteps, even those who we see as our adversaries, we would win the argument on the moral ground. And eventually they'd stumble.
What grieves me is the very idea that we can be held responsible for the actions of our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
It would only take the realization by humanity that history is not transmitted in sperms and eggs.
Right, exactly.
For us to be able to wipe this consideration off culture.
Right.
John, I have to say, sorry, Guy, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say that, I mean, the reality is that there's not a person on this planet, probably, who is not descended both from slaves and slave owners.
Yes.
It's quite interesting that when
and from Africans, like your T-shirt says.
Exactly. I mean, and it's very interesting. I mean, we have a program called "Who Do You Think You Are" in the UK, and you get celebrities who have their ancestry traced back, and on more than one occasion, somebody's found that they're descended from both slave owners and slaves in places like Jamaica. They're black. So the whole thing is crazy.
And they had a grandparent in both camps.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yes.
I just want to say that while I agree 100% with everything that has been said so far, we have to make allowances for human ignorance. And that is the only reason why I'm saying as a white person, where I am, and given the history of my country, I cannot expect Black South Africans to forget what happened in the past 400, 300 years.
Well,
I can't. I have to accept that I do have an extra burden.
Yes.
And I honor that burden.
Well, so you see, as a teacher, I can accuse you of being responsible for this ignorance. And I can only say that because I too am a former teacher and we've not been doing a good enough job.
But we have to meet people where they're at. We have to acknowledge certain things before we can move on. I can't claim, and that's all I'm trying to say. We have to meet people where they're at. And only when we meet them where they're at, we can begin to educate them. And maybe that's what I'm trying to embody. I'm trying to acknowledge the fact that whether or not I want it, I have a certain profile, and that's the first thing people will see about me. Whether I like it's not fair. It's not fair. It's grossly unfair. But I have to meet them where they're at. And I have to, my first step in any interaction is to meet them where they're at and acknowledge what they see. And then hopefully I can take them the next step. And maybe that's all I'm trying to say.
Do you know what you've made me think is maybe the blind are less racist?
They absolutely are. I see it every day. I've told you before that the area that I live in is actually, I think most of the properties around my house are owned by the Institute for the Blind, which it's the first blind institute established on the continent of Africa, the first school for the blind. And I see blind people, I see several tens of blind people walking in my area every day.
And they've got no idea what color this is. Yeah.
It's just so, yes. And I have to acknowledge that most people that I have contact with are not blind. Most people are sighted. And I have to make them blind first. And the way I make them blind, figuratively, is by acknowledging what they see and say, this is what you see. Let's move beyond that and take them by the hand and move them beyond that. And that's what I'm trying to say when I say we have to acknowledge, in the same way that Islamic people who claim that they, or who agitate for a caliphate in Germany, they have to be told, listen, do you realize what you are doing?
Yes.
They have to be told that. They have to get into the shoes of the Germans to see what the hell are you doing.
Yes.
And
so, staying with South Africa for your benefit, Tersia, you won't be pleased to hear, because you sent me this news item. Thank you very much. But you won't be pleased to hear that South Africa is one of only 3 countries in the world where religious participation has been increasing in recent years.
David with me on this one. David is a victim as well.
Yes. The other 2 countries are Italy and the US of A. So you can both speak about that. But what's been
David, fist bump.
Yes. What's been happening is Christian membership has increased in both of your countries. So talk to that.
All right. Well, I think in the United States, if it's gone up, it's probably nominal, because the number of nuns and spiritual but not religious have continued to rise. It's probably more of a regional issue than it is nationwide. So, places like the Bible Belt may see more births, maybe Utah because of the Mormons, but it's not a national thing that's happening. In fact, the numbers overall show the number of people who are not only good without God, but like living without religion and God is actually increasing. But it's no surprise that places that are religious, that don't believe in birth control, are having more children.
Yes.
Because they don't believe in birth control. So
self-fulfilling prophecy there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Tersia.
Well, David, you are so optimistic. I have been saying this about my country. Well, and I have to say that some regions in the United States are as big as many other countries. So it's a little perspective goes a long way. But I have been saying, purely by my own observations in my country over the past 4 years, there have been churches popping up like mushrooms. And what worries me, and this research seems to reinforce my concerns, is that it's all very fundamentalist, very evangelical, very conservative, really anti-science, young earth creationist type of mixed with traditional African religions, where strong beliefs in things like evil spirits, strong belief in satanic possession or demon possession, and it's really, really concerning. It's really worrying, and making massive inroads into public schools with massive evangelism programs in schools, in communities, in politics. That worries me in particular. We have a Muslim party in the elections that will be happening in 10 days' time. We have several Christian parties, and even the so-called, well, not even non-Christian political parties, all proclaim that God is on their side, and they are going to bring Christianity back into schools, and they're going to bring Christianity back into politics, and they're going to bring Christianity back into law. So I'm really worried. I'm really concerned. So yeah, not good news for me.
So do you want to end on a good piece of news? And I know, David, you might want to come in with your item first. Do you want to do that now, or should
sure. Well, as we know, in less than a week, we have changing minds in changing times.
Yes.
And my talk, which is going to be about natural selection versus intelligent design and creationism. Just this morning, I received an email from Kent Hovind's
Yes.
people, who the email invited me to debate Kent on this very topic, which of course I declined. But it's interesting that he happened to reach out to me today, because I've always declined, because there really is no debate here when we're talking about creationism versus science, evolution. We're talking about science and theology, and I'm not one to give anybody oxygen, certainly not someone like Ken Hovind. So I just thought that was funny, and I thought I'd share it. I posted it on Facebook. I'll probably mention it on Saturday, John.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Now.
Well, I'm looking forward to your talk, David.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll be there. I'll see you. Nice to meet you in person then.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, come on.
And it will be videoed, so everybody will be able to see it after the event. I want to confess that I have actually had a video session with Kent Hovind. It wasn't so much a debate as a harangue, because of course he's a pupil of who is it? The original Gish.
Gish. David, is it David?
Not Kenneth Copeland or
Ken Ham.
No, the Gish
David Gish, or whatever his name was, the galloper who didn't let you get a word in. He's a pupil of him. And so what I actually had to do was, following the Free Thought Hour talk that Kent and I had, I then had to do a follow-up show. It took about an hour and a half, in which I had my chance to get my say in between his gallops and point out the fallacies that he was committing. So that's still available.
Yeah, that's why I would never go. I mean, this guy is so off the wall that even the people of Answers in Genesis, who's Kent Ham, have disavowed him. Yes. That's how off the wall this guy is.
Yes. Ken Hovind and Kent Ham, they get mixed up. I think.
I can't distinguish them in my head.
Yeah. Anyway, finally, I've got a bit of good news for you, because you'll be pleased to hear that the Vatican, in fact, the Vatican's Dicastery for the Doctrine of the Faith, are looking at miracles, which of course the Roman Catholic Church supports and endorses, and they've come to the conclusion that some of them are maybe a bit dubious. So they are now coming up with, they're trying to come up with new criteria by which they can judge whether a miracle is a real miracle or a bogus miracle that they've previously, some of their priests have called them baloney. So they've already recognized that some of the original miracles, because this apparently they've had a number of these assemblies.
Yeah, well, back in about 1970, they demoted a load of saints on the grounds that they were fictional and it didn't happen. And one of them was San Januario, I think San Januario of Naples Cathedral, where his blood boils twice a year, and I've actually seen it happen.
Right. My blood boils every time I have to debate someone about evolution.
I was just going to say my blood boils at least once a day when one of the kids didn't do their homework. So
there you go.
Well, one of the most
Tersia, that makes you a saint. Do you realize that?
Yes. One of the most famous instances, of course, has been the weeping Madonna statues.
That's right. Yeah.
And in one case, I mentioned this last night on the Free Thought Hour debate we had, the chat show that we had with Nate Wyatt, a very good guest. And on one occasion, the tears that were coming from this statue turned out to be originating from a leaking toilet in the floor above.
Yeah.
And people had been gathering them and drinking them, of course, because they were holy water. Anyway, the Vatican is coming up with new guidelines on what is genuine supernatural phenomena and what are baloney supernatural phenomena.
It's interesting. The Catholic Church is getting there bit by bit. Every 20 or 30 years, they realize that they've been making a fool of themselves, and they've got some way to go yet.
Yeah, your tithing money is well spent by these people trying to figure out what a miracle is.
Yes.
Go on, Tersia.
So, John, I just want you to say, let's see if I can perform a miracle. You say that word, the die something, what to call it? And if I can repeat that word, would that count as a miracle?
Dicastery, yes.
Dicastery, yes. I've never heard of that term before. I used to be a Catholic, and I've never heard the word dicastery.
Yeah.
What is it? So dicastery?
Yep. Yeah. It's because they want to change the way the die has been cast. So
I thought it was something to do with dikes.
Oh no, I made that up. Forget it.
Well, I just said the word dicastery. So for a strict Calvinist like me to say the word dicastery and not die, I suppose that's a little bit of a miracle. But besides that, I have another request, John. So when and how, if at all, will we be able to get access to these new guidelines or criteria for miracles? Because I'd love to discuss those. I mean,
yes, indeed,
brilliant.
And more to the point, will we be allowed to apply these new criteria to the other claims of their religion, such as an existent God?
Or blood and the bread and wine turning into the blood and
yes, indeed. Yeah.
I just want to listen, John. I'm way less optimistic than you are. I just want to see the criteria first.
Yes.
I mean, I just want to see what is the criteria. So
Absolutely.
What is the levitation? What is the criteria for levitation? Is it 2 centimeters, 5 centimeters, 25 centimeters? And how are you going to test that there's no strings attached? Pardon the pun. And I mean, it could be wildly exciting. I mean, I just love to see those criteria. I mean, they'd be brilliant.
They're opening.
Perhaps
I was going to say they're opening a can of worms that's going to give us a lot of pleasure in the future.
Yeah, I think they might put Lourdes out of business as well.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
The Roman Catholic Church, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah. Guys, next week, it'll be the day after CMECT. And I'm not sure whether we will. I will hopefully have prepared a Global Atheist News because I can do it quite speedily these days. I've been practicing for the last 3 years and a bit. And whether or not we'll be of a mind to have views on the new show remains to be seen. But David, I'm hoping that the day after CMECT, you'll come and visit me and stay in our spare room.
And thank you very much.
You could be in the studio.
Will he be sleeping in my bed?
No, no. You had.
Don't tell your husband.
You had
but there's some distance in between our sleeping arrangements, so.
Yeah, in your case, it's about 5,000 miles.
Right.
And a year, more than a year, 2 years and 5.
There you go. So time and distance.
Yes. Anyway, if you can come and visit, we have the room at the moment. And you'll be able to be in the studio here with me doing a bit of hosting. So
that would be fantastic. Wow.
3 hosts, me, Terse, and you, David. How about
that? That would be.
I will be. This is the holy communion of atheist hosting.
You're not the Holy Grail, then.
Right.
I think.
I will have to pass because I'll be too green. I'm already going all different shades of pea as I'm pea green as I'm sitting here.
No, I mean you can't opt out because it's the Trinity.
That's right. That's right.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And as the Muslims say, the Trinity is God the Father, Jesus Christ, and the Virgin Mary.
Ah!
Well,
There you go.
so there, yeah, I'm obviously God the Father. David, you're Jesus Christ, and Tersia,
Hey.
welcome, Mary.
I'm just Mary. I'm just Mary.
Okay. Yeah, we never did believe the Virgin bit anyway.
Yeah, well, none of my conceptions were immaculate. They were all very much traditional.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Good.
a lot of fun, I hope. So that's a
Well, what I can remember, it's been so many years.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to get involved in this conversation. It's getting
No,
too
I'm stepping back.
You draw a line
Goodbye. It
there.
was lovely.
racy for me.
Goodbye. I shall go now.
Right.
All right.
Guys, thank you very much. Thank you for
Bye.
coming.
Be well, everybody. Bye.
Take care.
Cheers.
Looking forward to next weekend.
Yes.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the